Give me back my passport! Why do you want to go to Mexico?
I just love Latinas, Sonic.
What?
Adios, amigo.
I recently got back from watching the Shadow Dark Beginnings first episode, and in this video I'm going to explain to you why this short gets Shadow right. Here we see on the Space Colony arc, Maria Robotnik, voiced by Stephanie Sheh, the English dub voice actor of Orihime from Bleach, taking Shadow to see the northern lights glowing over the Earth. She needs to reside in space because the lack of oxygen and gravity prevents her disease from getting worse. Shadow, in a fit of rage, fears that the work he's doing just isn't good enough to help her. Maria rushes over to Shadow and tells him that she's grateful to have both him and her grandfather Gerald Robotnik as the most important figures in her life. In the middle of the heart-to-heart moment, we then see Emerl wreaking havoc across the Space Colony arc and threatening the life of Gerald Robotnik. Maria begs Shadow to save her grandfather's life. Shadow persists and makes a promise to come back to save her. Shadow makes it in time to save the Professor and battle Emerl, and I just want to talk. The fight scene that has been animated by Studio Gigex just absolutely kicks ass. It is just awesome. It looks like they watched Jujutsu Kaisen or Naruto and just took inspiration from their fight scenes just to animate this fight scene. I want to talk about the rest of the animation. The rest of the animation is just absolutely incredible, absolutely beautiful. It's like they were watching Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen and said, yeah, I want this Shadow the Hedgehog animated short to look like those animes done by Ufotable and Studio Mappa. While fighting Emerl, Shadow comes to the realization that he's having a flashback. These are all just memories happening. He then sees Gun's fleet of ships. The next second, he falls out of the Space Colony arc and lands himself in the same room that Gerald Robotnik was being held captive in Sonic Adventure 2. He walks up to Gerald, but the hallway just continuously extends. Shadow chases after Gerald to try and reach up to him, but the hallway just turns into this dark limbo. Dark limbo is made up of all the horrors and traumas that Shadow has had to deal with for over 50 years that he's been alive, like Gun storming the Ark, losing Maria's life, and falling into the hands of Black Doom. This causes Shadow to wake up in a frightful shock. We then see it's the present day, taking place after Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, but set before the events of Shadow Generations, which simultaneously ties into Sonic Generations. Shadow stares at the Ark from Earth and begins to wonder if Black Doom is really dead or not. After envisioning him in his nightmare, he goes to seek out the truth, and this is where the short ends. Now, why does this episode do Shadow's character justice? Going back to Sonic Adventure 2, where Shadow makes his big debut, he was never evil, he was just misguided. After 50 years in an unconscious state, his memories had become distorted, and he couldn't fully remember Maria's promise. Eggman used this to his advantage to manipulate Shadow into collecting the Chaos Emeralds to destroy the Earth. It wasn't until the final story where Amy said this to Shadow.
They try their best and never give up on their wishes. They always have a reason to be happy. That's why you should help them out. Saving them is a good thing. Shadow, I beg you, please do it for them. Give them a chance.
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do it for me. For Maria! Future, for all people who live on that planet. Give them a chance to be happy. Let them live for their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world. Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
I promised her, and I must keep that promise. That's what Maria wished for. I've got to go now. I have to keep my promise to Maria and you.
They were the exact same words Maria said to Shadow 50 years ago. The memory struck him like a bolt of lightning, and now it's up to him, Sonic & Co., to prevent the Space Colony arc from destroying the planet, even if it costs him his own life. Most modern portrayals of Shadow completely have the character backwards, especially in Sonic Boom, where he's just a jerk-ass that just wants to fight Sonic for the sake of fighting him. His portrayal in Prime was a big improvement, albeit being an arsehole in some cases. Overall, Sega's just turned him into a cartoony edgelord rival for the sake of being a cartoony edgelord rival. Now, this is probably because of Sega taking the franchise in a quantity over quality direction during the 2010s. Ever since 2022, since the release of Sonic Frontiers, Ian Flynn, the writer of the Sonic comic books since 2009, has now become the core writer of the video game franchise, which is a step in the right direction because he spent over 15 years writing for this franchise, and I used to be a huge fan of the comics. I haven't read them since 2017, but I used to be a big fan of his work. I haven't beaten Sonic Frontiers, but I have played it long enough to know that the writing is much more of an improvement compared to like Forces or Lost World or even Vanilla Generations. Shadow's portrayal in Dark Beginnings is probably the most nuanced portrayal of the character I've ever seen. We see him frustrated, we see him have a heart-to-heart with Maria, we see him stand up for what's truly right, we see a badass anime fight scene, we see him relive the horrors of his past, we see him wake up from a terrible nightmare. It's the most three-dimensional portrayal I've ever seen of Shadow, and I can't wait for what the second episode has in store, plus Shadow Generations when it releases. I also cannot wait for the third movie where they have Keanu Reeves portraying Shadow.
You're a colorful bunch.
So that's the end of the video. I tried to keep it as straightforward as possible. Tell me what you thought about in the comments, leave a like, and I'll see you next time.
What the fuck? Is that Shadow's dick?